Now am I audible? I guess now I am audible to all of you. So a very good morning. And we'll be starting from where we have left yesterday. Good morning, Avtar. Good morning, Hemant. So we were talking about India and Britain relations, and we had seen what are the things which are not allowing these two countries to realize their full potential. And a strategic partnership agreement is a type of agreement where most of the aspect of relationship is taken care of. Most of the segments are seen from a strategic angle where only economic aspect is not a pillar. Good morning, Devbrat. Good morning, Sazil. So we'll look into deepening the ties in all the sectors, be it cultural, be it educational, be it technological, or cooperating in the international forum, setting up common agenda and goals which can benefit both the nations. So this kind of relationship is called as a strategic relationship. France was the first country which had a strategic relationship with India, and henceforth as many as 26, 27 countries have signed a strategic relationship with India, an agreement for a strategic relationship. Some of the countries, of course, have signed beyond that, right? So, like there is comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Japan, or we have a special strategic relationship with some of the countries that we had seen. So we'll be talking about India and Britain relations. So we'll start with some of the things which are important, not much to discuss. As you know that recently Britain chose to exit from European Union. So this relationship will be overhauled over a period of time, and we'll be establishing a direct relationship with Britain. As far as most of our relations with Britain were concerned, we're mostly dealing it as a European Union partner only, right? But Britain was one of the most important countries there, so we had seen few things in detail. So we'll start with the diaspora. As we had discussed why the relationship is not good and what was historical relations. So I'll be starting with the diaspora aspect between these two countries. And I'm taking diaspora as the first aspect only because Modi ji has called this thing as living bridge. So Indian diaspora as living bridge. Okay. So of course such words, such connotations have important meaning. Proteus market access is allowing others to trade freely. Tariffs is the charges that apply. These are economic terms. Most probably you have discussed all the things in economy, right? So these are basic economic terms. Market access means allowing other country to trade freely in our market, and tariff is something, the charges that apply to enter a market. Okay. So diaspora has been called as living bridge. And yesterday only, we had seen that some of the problems, some of the good things happening there is because of diaspora only. The pro-Khalistani groups do belong to the state of Punjab, and they have protested many a times in England, in Britain. And the country, Britain, did not provide protection. Appropriate measures were not taken to save the premises there. Okay. So probably this living bridge is an apt word to define, because politically the Indian community is very active, and if something goes against India, this living bridge makes sure that Britain has to take care of the things which are important for India. Living bridge is a term which signifies that it connects two areas. Britain and India are connected by their people, living people. We are living beings. And of course, you know, Modi ji is fond of using such terms. Every now and then he comes up with some of the remarkable terms which you can easily use in your answers. Good morning, Amit. So if we talk about this thing, the India's population is approximately, Indian diaspora, 1.8% of the population of Britain. Okay. And this is not a formidable number, but approximately 15 lakh people. But it is a small country with a small population. So these groups are, of course, influential there. And like we had discussed yesterday, we have issues like Khalistani protests. We have issues like separatist elements, specifically Jammu and Kashmir. There are elements, economic offenders, like Vijay Mallya. So this happens to be a safe haven for the people who are doing wrong things for India. So all these issues are, as these are conflicting points. And of course, some of our diaspora is also working to better this relationship with India. But still, because of the historical things that these two countries have seen, we do not share a great rapport. So the next point is economic relations. the economic aspect. Good morning, Yati. Good morning, Mani, Krishna. I hope everybody is fine and doing well. So let's focus on the things that we are discussing. So if we talk about this relationship, first I'll be talking about the traditional things that these two countries has been sharing. But like I said, the Brexit event, a very good morning, Asu. The Brexit event has changed the scenario. So if we talk about the trade that happens between these two countries, we have agricultural goods, we have textile, okay, the agricultural goods, textile, petroleum products, engineering goods. These are the major things in which we are having trade with Britain. And both of these countries are making investments. Okay? Both of these countries are also making investment. Britain is one Britain is amongst one of the largest investors in India. And Indian investments, mostly private, have created more than lakh jobs in Britain. Okay? You must be aware that there was a situation a year back when Britain was coming up with some of the policies which could have hampered the Indian investment there. Okay? So Britain came up with a policy which could have harmed Indian investments. And Tata, they said that if the policy is implemented, then probably they'll leave. And Tata is one of the biggest employer in that country. So they took back that decision. Okay? India is the second largest job creator in UK. India is, in fact, second largest job creator in UK. And still, this country fails to maintain the cordial relationship as is expected from it. Okay? So now the Brexit event has led to free trade agreement talks directly between these two countries. And a lot will be in news in coming time, right? So it will be a continuous process. You'll have to add points whatever appear in the news, because it's still UK hasn't break free completely from the group, European Union. Okay, so Britain hasn't exited. So you'll have to follow this aspect, the economic aspect, how India is taking care of. So many of the things are happening. They had launched some of the programs. And if we talk about some specific examples, then you can talk about Britain developing Varanasi railway station, under smart city project. But such examples should be contemporary. If something new happens from the side of Britain, no Proteus. Brexit in itself is a new term. Britain exiting is short form is Brexit. This hasn't been before. This is the first time that Britain has decided to go alone. Okay. So these are few of the things that you need to focus. And the other point which is important between these two countries is, of course, the angle of education. You know, Britain do have a lot of universities like Oxford, right? Princely University. People from India are keen to study there. Free trade agreement. Krishna, it is, you must have read this thing in economics as well. FTA is free trade agreement. FTA is free trade agreement. And we have been talking about this term for many days. It has occurred many a times in our discussion. So now we'll look at the educational aspect and why it is important, because they have one of the greatest universities of the world, and the number of students, the number of Indian students going to British universities is falling fast. Is reducing sharply. And the reason is not like Indian students are not interested in going to that place. The biggest issue is that Britain has come up with some illiberal visa policies. So it is not very easy for the Indian students to go there. and study in Britain. And why it is happening? Illiberal visa regime for Indian students. And it has been felt by the Indian government that this policy is a deliberate policy, because even the students from some of our neighboring states easily get admission in British universities. But when it comes to Indian students, we find it difficult. Okay? And despite their joint educational commissions and groups, okay, still the talks have failed every time, and Indian students are not getting the benefits. There are joint working groups to resolve the issue, resolve the educational issues, but it has not yielded the desired results. So it is important that you follow these news related to this. If something they have also created India UK Education Forum. There exists but all these have failed to yield any results. Okay? And there are a lot of schemes as well, but you'll be focusing on the ones which are in news. You have to write such things, very contemporary things. And of course, recently we have seen that recent collaboration between these two countries. Serum Institute of India, the Serum Institute of India, Oxford, AstraZeneca, came up with vaccine against SARS-CoV-2 virus. Excuse me. Okay. Illiberal visa regime means it is not liberal. It is not easy to get a visa to go to UK. Liberal का उल्टा illiberal. That's it. कोई hidden meaning नहीं है. It's just a simple word of English. Okay, this is something that we have been collaborating. And we have also proposed collaboration between universities of India and Britain to innovate cutting edge technology. Okay, so some of these things are happening. We both countries are also cooperating in clean energy. Both are working together on clean energy technologies. Okay, so these are some of the points of convergence. But of course, you know that as we had discussed earlier as well, most of these collaborations are intended to benefit from the Indian markets. They are collaborating in the areas where they can benefit from India. So still there is a lot of scope. We can look forward to many other aspects. And if we talk about defense relations, the other aspect that we can talk about is defense. So this is, in fact, the policies of Britain are not helping the defense requirements of our country. Okay, we are having joint exercises which is Ajay Warrior. Ajaya. Okay, Ajaya Warrior. This is a joint exercise. But such joint exercises are not helping much because Britain is more inclined towards China and Pakistan. Britain have shown more inclination towards policies of China and Pakistan. So it is a threat. But very recently, a year back, when the issue was of Hong Kong, when Britain invited the people of Hong Kong to come back, they can move to Britain. At that point in time, China was infuriated. China was unhappy. Okay, so such things have made sure that these two countries can look forward to good relations. But of course, we know, as we have seen historically, it's never been a very open relationship there were always opaqueness from the side of Britain when it comes to establishing relationship with India. So these are the only things that you need to focus, and if anything happens in the current scenario, then you need to add to it. Just add it, okay? Because it will take some time before there is a full-fledged relationship established between the two nations. Because there are many points where it is not clear whether we have to approach European Union or we have to approach Britain directly. And it has been case with most of the European Union nations who want to establish a direct relationship with India. Like France is the only country which is a very, very good friend of India. And it wants to establish a direct relationship with India in many of the aspects. But because of European Union, it's not happening. So for Britain, this much of information is more than enough. Just follow this news because a lot of things will be happening in next 1 year, maybe 2. Because of the COVID situation, the process is a bit slow. But things will start rolling once the population of the world gets vaccinated. Okay? So we'll now look at the relationship with European Union. Or we can, before European Union, we can look at another important state in this region. We'll be talking about France first, and then we'll look at European Union. France is important. Why? Because it has been called as India's new best friend. And why so? Because there was a survey done by an agency, independent agency based in France. And what it has discovered, that since last 2 decades, whatever the events have unfolded, it has always appeared that France is always standing for India. Even it is more proactive than Russia, and hence this relationship has been called as India's new best friend. Krishna will be talking about Japan as well. Okay, we'll be talking about Japan. Don't be worried. We'll look at all important relationships that are always important. Even if it is not in news, it can appear. Some of the countries which become important only when they are in news. But I am discussing all the countries which are always important. There can be a small question on them because of the kind of relationship that we had shared. Okay? So now we'll be talking about India and France. Japan I did not take earlier only because Japan mostly doesn't have an independent policy of its own. If you look at the geopolitics of the world, it is forced to follow whatever US is doing. Right? So it has an independent policy only in name, not in action, not in implementation. Right? So we'll be looking at a more close relationship, an important relationship. In fact, the only relationship in Europe which we can say that they are our all-weather friend. Rest of the countries, of course, they want to benefit only from India, and they do not stand by India whenever we need them. Like before starting the lecture on Britain, I had said that it was the country which established the first strategic relationship with India, so it is important. India and France, okay? It is India's new best friend. Okay? India's new best friend. The earlier one was Soviet. So, it established the diplomatic relationship with India in the year of its independence, 1947. Established diplomatic relations okay. So, as you know that we'll be discussing Devam. Japan definitely will be discussing. There are questions, but I wanted you to know that it doesn't have an independent policy. The question is always because there is something happening in the South China Sea. And Japan is member of Quad, is involved with US, India is involved with US. So of course we can expect more number of questions around that place. So independent India-Japan relationship specifically is not much important as it is as a grouping, right? So of course whenever we discussed Quad, we discussed Japan. We'll look into many groupings, there will be Japan. So we'll be talking about it. I said I'll be talking about it. I didn't say that I'll leave that. So in 1948, there was an agreement between France and India that agreement, and France said that its people residing its territories in India stands free to choose their future. Of course, you are aware that France had control over some parts of India. If you have read history, you know that France and Britain were in a battle to capture most part of India. It was defeated by the British. So it had control over some of the areas like Puducherry. Puducherry was one place where they had control. Okay. So it said that the people residing in these places and Union Territory of Puducherry, I am sure that most of you must be aware that it is spread. It is not situated, okay, at a single place. Yes, Devam, you have read it. Yeah. Goa was Portuguese colony, Dhananjay. So there are 4 places which are now considered as Puducherry, if you are aware. The first one is Yanam. And it is part of Andhra. Near, means if you look at the territory, it is Puducherry, but it lies in an area where we have Andhra Pradesh. And below this is Chennai. Nearby Chennai we have Puducherry, the real one, which was, Karaikal and Puducherry. And Mahe, of course. Okay. So Puducherry and Karaikal both are surrounded by the areas. These are surrounded by Tamil Nadu. And somewhat here we have Mahe, and this is surrounded by which state? Kerala. So recently there were elections in Puducherry, you must be aware, it was in news. So the elections were in all these places. Some of you who are not aware about this thing, you can note it. So this was the place which France said that it is free to choose its political future. They can choose where they want to stay. And in 1956, the treaty was signed, the Treaty of Secession. Between India and France. In 1962, French left. It became UT. Okay. Yeah, Devam, that is right. These are all political events which do not necessarily are based on some merit. These all are political decisions. But of course, you know, these things were happening, and the Cold War era, so non-aligned versus aligned. So not very cordial contacts. So there was a time, this Cold War era, when with most of the European countries, of course, India did not share a wonderful relation. But as with all other European states, disintegration of USSR, and era of cordial relations began. So this is the most common thing with all the European nations, most of the nations who aligned with USA. Only after USSR was disintegrated, they tended to come close to India. And by that time, another reason was that Indian market was liberalized. We were welcoming other countries to come to India and invest. Okay? So both these events happened simultaneously, plus LPG reforms. India attracted it as a market. So initial relations with India always started with people thinking of it as a big market. France do not had a choice. They were all with US. But it was mostly neutral. It was a progressive country which never ever tried to get into any of the conflicts. And it is the only country which came up with the idea of a strategic relationship with India. First country to sign a strategic relationship agreement with India. In fact, France is the only reason that we today are. Amit, this is not a very warranted question. Non-aligned you are not aware of. I have discussed as many as, I guess, 20 times. Non-aligned means not being with any of the Cold War era military alliances. Not being with the military alliances of USA, not being with the military alliances of erstwhile Soviet. So if you want to get details into it, I want you to have a look at first 3 lectures. We had a detailed discussion. It was always coming again and again. So go for it. Okay. In short, it is being neutral towards military groups. That was the policy of India. For details, revisit the first 3 lectures that we had. It is available on the app. Okay, because it will take a lot of time if I dwell into the things that we already had discussed. So this event, 1998, is important. And this is the time after which many high-level visits happened hereafter. Head of a state of France came to India. Yeah, money. Gut nirpeksha niti. Non-aligned. Gut nirpeksha. That is the word. Not being with any of the groups. And basically thereafter we had many things which shaped this relationship. And at this point in time, this relationship becomes more important because in the sight of Chinese aggression against India, France delivered Rafale jets to India well within time. It came forward that it understood that India is in need of those aircrafts, so it delivered to us. And the relationship has always been good since here. So now we'll look at some of the contemporary aspects which are important. This year also it was in news, India and France, for many reasons. For if you are aware, if you are following science and technology, that then I'm very sure that you must have heard about 5G technology, and it is Capgemini. There is a IT company, Capgemini, based which originally belongs to France, and it has set up only 2 units to research on the most efficient and secure usage of 5G technology. And one of the centers was established in Paris and the other one in India. So 5G technology, if you know, Rafale, if you know, definitely you know that France is important. And if you are following Israel-Palestine, and if you have seen the newspaper of past 2-3 days, France is calling for multilateral world. And the behavior of US and United Nations has egged, and it was looking forward to India to give a statement in its favor. Okay? So now we'll look at the defense aspect first, because it is the most important aspect between these two relations. The defense aspect. The first aspect which is in news, I'm giving this first priority only because it is in news. France calls for multilateral world where India is seen by it as a major stakeholder. And the best example is the recent phenomena, the conflict of Israel and Palestine, where UN was not in a position to take a call, as it was doing in South Africa as well. In the region of Niger, Chad, France has been calling for a long time that it is important that unilateral decisions are not taken, multilateral decisions. All the countries of the world must be involved in this thing. But unfortunately, what we have seen, that UN is taking sides whatever USA is calling for. So this aspect is important. Yeah, Divam, you're very, very correct. And you need to read this thing, why France and USA are head on, and how India is in confusion. Because France, what wants India to support it, USA wants India to support it, right? So Israel-Palestine issue, it is one of the concerns. The second aspect is defense deals. Between these two countries. Delivered us Rafale in the time of need. Okay, so this was in news. We had a pact with them. There is a P751 program of Indian Navy. This is a program which will run into future. This is an important project from the perspective of Indian security. P751 program, you can also get a question on this in prelims. This is a project to build 24 submarines. By the year 2030, with active French support. Okay, so it will keep on coming in the news, so this is important. Submarines and this 18 conventional submarines and 6 nuclear. And you must be aware that France generates 70% of its energy from nuclear reactors. The whole country fulfills 70% of its energy requirement using nuclear. So they are experts in this field. So they can help us in many respects. And we are also having joint exercises. So P751 program, you need to follow this thing, remember this thing, because it will appear again in news. Because the project has to be completed by the year 2030. So this is name of exercise. Between started. So this years are not important, but the names, some of these, the first one is That is, Varuna is important between the navel. No money, it doesn't have any other meaning. Some of the times the projects are given some name when they have extended period of execution. When it will be completed, maybe they will give a meaningful name to this P751. Okay. So the Varuna exercise was in news. It is between Navy. And why it was in news? Because UAE also participated. Basically, it is a bilateral exercise, but some of the times we invite some other countries in our bilateral exercises as well. And it was started in the year 2001. The years are not very important, right? You have to remember this Varuna. Garuda is between the Air Force. The name in itself is clear, right? These are all mythological names. And Sakti. It's between the armies. So recently Varuna was in news. Okay, because UAE was invited. So if something is in news, it of course becomes more important. Yeah. The fifth aspect of defense cooperation is cybersecurity. Both countries recognize the cyber usage for terrorist activities and hence cooperating. You must be aware that France is one of the countries which has seen most of the lone wolf attacks, where some individual is radicalized over internet. You might have heard of lone wolf attacks. Okay. This means not associated with any radical group, but involve alone in terrorist activity. Okay. Lone wolf attacks, you must have read about this thing. And if you have read internal security, then of course, this is an important term. You must have heard about it. So what basically is a lone wolf attack? Here some individual, let's say there is some individual X, and he is not associated with any of the organizations, not any of terrorist organizations, but he finds some material which motivates him to indulge in some terrorist activities. And many a times it has been seen that the lectures, the speeches by some of the fanatics influence individuals to do such kind of attack, right? Like in France, a teacher was killed by a religious fundamentalist very recently. It was a lone wolf attack. So France has seen a lot of lone wolf attacks. So it recognizes that this can be a threat. And hence, both are cooperating. India haven't seen such kind of attacks, but of course, we know that how the ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist organizations are influencing our youth in Jammu and Kashmir, how they are recruiting even cadres from Kerala, those who went to ISIS to fight on behalf of those terrorist organizations. They were recruited online. And these are the youths who are not aware of the real grave situation. And they were trapped. So such thing is happening over internet. So cybersecurity is an important aspect of cooperation between these two countries. Yes, Yati. Of course, it is like some of the people do not apply their logic. And they are so convinced by some or the other individual that they forget to look at the broader perspective. And they start hating their own surrounding, their own people. And someone based in Afghanistan, Syria, can motivate such ill-informed individuals to attack their own motherland, their own people, right? So these things are really dangerous. So both these countries are cooperating with each other, and France is always with India. And the most recent thing, usually France never invites countries who are not actively involved in the previously cold era groupings. They were having some of the games. Proteus, Syria as a country, no. But Syria is not under control of any of the formal government. If there could have been any formal government which could have tried to establish relationship, of course we could have said friends or enemies. But it is mostly being controlled at this point in time by some non-state actors. And it has become actually a place of politics between USA and Soviet, right? Those groupings. So all the countries are meddling in that country, and it has gone out of control. And the price that has to be paid was by the innocent Syrian people. The natural inhabitants suffered because of the politics by outside influence. So first time India became part of French-led war game, basically naval war game, called Les Perros recently. So again, it is important because it was in news. Okay. And it was conducted near us, so it becomes more relevant. India participated, It was in Bay of Bengal. Okay? Bay of Bengal. India was invited for the first time. So there can be a 1-mark question, what is Le Perros? Okay, so this term is important. It is a naval war game. And of course, if we look at the broader perspective, the seat of UN Security Council, France is one of those countries which has always supported India. Okay. Now the other sector of cooperation is technology. This aspect, of course, is important because now only I informed you that 5G innovation labs recently were declared by Capgemini. 5G innovation labs were recently declared by Capgemini. It is a French company. And the places that were chosen was Paris and Mumbai. So some of you are appearing this year only. So this news is very important. There can be a question on 5G technology, and in that question only they'll add which company has done this thing, or maybe which places house these labs. So you have to focus on this aspect. And for technology innovation, these two countries have signed Cybersecurity and Digital Technology Roadmap. Okay, and in this segment, both the countries want to collaborate on some emerging areas like artificial intelligence. So the focus is on cutting edge technology. Supercomputing. Machine learning. Okay, so they'll be collaborating on these aspects. And these, of course, are very important aspects. And there is lot of space technology cooperation is happening between these two countries. The other aspect is space, that has seen a lot of collaboration between these two countries. Okay. So both the countries are collaborating. The National Center for Space Studies, CNES, it has collaborated with our ISRO in many of the programs. The CNES, this is an English name. Actually, CNES stands for Center National d'Etudes Spatiales. This is the French name, but not everyone can understand looking at this. So the English name is National Center for Space Technology. Okay, plus ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, are collaborating in many aspects. So technology, of course, we have lot of involvement. So if we talk about some of the things that has been, so in 2011, if we talk about year, programs, you have to focus on new ones only. Some previous things, of course, gives you an opportunity to show that you know few things more. Okay, these old things won't appear in prelims, most probably 99% chances. Okay, there was a program called as Mega Tropicus, which was executed by both these countries in 2013. Saral Altica, but the important ones are which are decided but not executed yet. The projects which will take shape in future, these are important from the perspective of science and technology also. So you have to follow this. The first one is OceanSat, Ocean Satellite 3. It was envisaged to be sent now only, and it was to host French Argos system. Okay, so there was Argos which has to be sent with this, and it was to be sent this year only, in fact in 2020, but because of the COVID situation, some of the collaborations could not be executed well. Okay, and there was also another project called as Trishna. Okay, this project, it is in news. Why it is in news? Though it is a project which was envisioned earlier only, but recently France has decided to add one more element to it. It was basically for natural resource assessment. But recently, both these countries were collaborating in this, and there was no independent satellite from France. But very recently, they have decided to add one Earth observation satellite mission. French Earth observation satellite mission has been mission will be launched with it. Previously, it was only Trishna which was to be sent, but now what they have decided, that they'll add one French observation satellite, and this is important for science and technology as well. I'm telling you, follow this news and understand what these things do. Get into the details of this thing, read about these things. Okay, and France would also help India in India's mission to Venus and Mars. So these things, this specifically this one, you have to follow this and read about this thing. All of them were in news. Okay, so this is the technological aspect of this relationship. And a lot of things were previously done, so all of those are not important, but you have to focus on these aspects. Now we'll look at another aspect of this relationship, and it is the economic aspect. The economic aspect. Again, in this sector also, France is really, really proactive. Suman, it is not comes. It is CNES. Center National d'Etudes Spatiales. Center National d'Etudes Spatiales. ठीक है? CNES है वो. It is not COMES. This is CNES. ठीक है? I hope you have noted it down. Now we'll move to the economic aspect. Okay, so if we talk about the economic aspect of this relationship, of course, France, one of the biggest investors in India. More than 1,000 French companies are working in India. So of course they are generating a lot of employment as well, as they are stationed here. Also, if we talk about India, India also have presence of 100 plus companies in France, and is one of the biggest employer there. Like Britain, it is second biggest employer in France as well. So if we look at the number of companies working, India is a big country, so 1,000 companies. France is a very small country. So 100 companies of India being there is also a big thing. Okay? It is a big achievement. But we do not have a free trade agreement. Amit, they are like Puducherry is at 4 places, but it is part of the same union territory. It is operated in the same way, like being in Delhi, India is, the central government is having control over all the states. So all the places are having a administrative head who reports to the main administration. That's it, simple ways. Like for UP is a big state, 75 districts, but the CM is residing in Lucknow. So it is like that only, simple administrative setup, that's it. What if they are at far-flung places? Some of the biggest states are being controlled easily. And of course, France is investing in our smart city program. So France has a role to play in the development of smart cities. Chandigarh, Nagpur, and Puducherry. It is a technologically advanced country, and of course they have taken care of their development. So they are helping India with some of the best practices that India can utilize and make their cities smart. Now we'll look at one more aspect which is important. Like I said, it has met 70% of its energy requirements using nuclear energy, and for this reason also it is in news. So we have seen that there are 5-6 elements because of which France is in news, and directly or indirectly India is also involved in those aspects. So there can be a full-fledged question in mains on India and French relationship. Nuclear power project. They have applied for one of the biggest nuclear power projects that is being built in India, in Jaitapur, that is in Ratnagiri district of Maharashtra. So this relationship is very much expected this time, because it is, for many of the reasons, France is in news, and that too with respect to India. So if you are following the climate change news, you must have known that there is an international solar alliance, and France and India launched this international solar alliance, and we have its headquarters in Gurugram in India. So Renewable Energy Corporation, International Solar Alliance, launched by France and India in 2015. So you'll be reading about it in detail in climate change topics in environment, or you must have read this thing. It is important. It was part of the Paris Agreement related to, so both of these countries are working together on solar energy. Next important aspect is nuclear energy. France has bid for 6 nuclear plants in Jaitapur, Ratnagiri, Maharashtra. Okay, and this is a very important power project. It will be the biggest of the world, biggest nuclear project in world. In fact, the talks were started very early in 2015-16 only. But the people of Jaitapur were afraid that if some nuclear mishap happens, then they will be the biggest losers. Okay? But anyhow, Indian government has convinced those people that France is having an expertise, and they have been giving utilizing almost 70% of their energy needs from nuclear projects. So now India is willing to start with the project again. So you have to remember that. France meets almost 70% of its energy needs from nuclear energy. It itself can be a question, which country of the world has highest share of nuclear energy in its energy composition. So it is France. Okay. So this energy aspect is also important that you have to understand. And if something comes in news, try to follow the news, because this aspect is important. Okay. So we have why it is in news. France called for multilateral decisions on affairs concerning world. Like Israel, Palestine, conflict in Niger, Chad. Okay. Policies related to North Korea, Iran, South China Sea. Okay. And it wants India to support its call. Okay. So if there is a question, talk about India and France relationship. So you'll be talking about each and everything, whatever you have read. Now, whatever we have discussed, then you have to talk about these things, what is happening around the world. Okay? So what it does, dilemma for India. Why? In most cases, USA is the cause of concern and an irritant to France. France is our all-weather friend. USA is also a friend. So, taking a stand in favor of any of these two creates problem for India. So, India needs a balance. India needs to balance its policy. You know, in the whatever we have discussed, we have some relationship with USA as well. In defense, we are very much dependent. In technology, we are cooperating. In space, of course, we are cooperating. Culture, of course, there is some relations. So all the aspects, we have some kind of convergence. But these things call for this multilateral decisions in the world arena. Of course, India wants to be party to it. We seek support from both USA and France when it comes to permanent seat of United Nations Security Council. But when these two countries are at loggerheads, what India is going to do? So what we need? We need a balanced policy. We need a balanced policy. It is important that India follows a very balanced policy to diffuse the situation that has been created between these two countries. Okay? So everybody is clear with this thing? I hope there is no point of confusion because these things are more of descriptive in nature. And maybe if we'll find time, we'll talk about Yati. India is following a policy of dehyphenation. It is a very clear-cut policy, and we have already informed. We have already informed these countries that we are following a policy of dehyphenation, and the relationship with USA or maybe France will not be impacted by their relationship. But the policy of dehyphenation is easy to talk about, but in implementation, a slightest mistake or miscommunication can give a wrong message. So India needs to be very, very careful. Yeah, Avatar, with respect to these things, like Israel and Palestine conflict, USA doesn't want to talk about that thing. They just said that the thing should be diffused, but they were not in a they don't want other countries to get involved to diffuse that thing when these two parties were throwing these bombs at each other, rockets at each other. But France was of the opinion that it is the mistake done by Israel somehow. Of course, Hamas started with, but Israel, being more powerful, should have restrained from bombarding that place. So it is important that all the countries get involved and we have an open discussion where a resolution should be passed against these two parties. We should tell Hamas that they were wrong when they started it, and Israel has to restrain because it is more powerful. But USA said it will stay neutral, and in fact it didn't allow even this United Nations to go along with this resolution. So it is a bit of problematic thing between these two countries. And of course, the problem has been diffused. They are talking about truce now, and Hamas said that they won. So, of course, let them celebrate. So now we'll move to European Union, a group of 27 nations. Earlier it were 28, but with the decision of Britain to leave that group, now they are only 27 in number. We'll be talking about it. It won't take much of our time because most of the things that we have discussed already with respect to Britain and France. These are the only things that we are cooperating. These are important countries. We have already discussed this thing. And in 1951, the inception of the group. First, we'll talk about how European Union came into existence. And this was started by simply 6 countries in 1951 who were more concerned with coal and steel. This was not something seen as a group which will take such a big shape that almost 28 countries will be party to it. Okay, so 1951, there was a Treaty of Paris for European Coal and Steel Community. And at that time, there were only 6 countries which were party to this thing. So a small start in 1951. The world was ravaged by 2 world wars. It was a time when independent countries were not in a position to develop alone. They wanted some kind of support. So 6 countries clubbed together to develop together in 1951. And in 1958, the group was enlarged, and with the Treaty of Rome, European Economic Community was formed. Okay, so 1958, and it was only in 1993 that European Union came into existence. With Maastricht Treaty. Okay, and here 28 countries became party to it. Adi, these were initial France, Britain and all. It is not important. You won't be able to remember all of that. It will become 13, 17. You can't remember. So know about things which are related and relevant to exam. Don't run behind facts which won't give you any meaning. These 3 dates are important. In fact, in prelims, if they ask identify all the 28 countries, it will become very difficult for you. You cannot remember all, right? This is not so some exam related to one-day exam like railway and others that they'll go to some such details. In UPSC, they'll be mostly focusing on important events plus application-based questions. Contemporary, some factual questions can be there, but mostly they won't. Okay? So, but we know some other interesting things that you need to know, even if the grouping was like this. But not all are having same kind of access to everything. Not everybody wants to use euro as their currency. Okay? So there are only 19 countries which are using euro as their currency. Okay? And those who use this thing, all these 19 countries are called as Eurozone countries. So basically these are the countries which are using euro as their currency. And 9 of the members doesn't use it. Now Britain has exited, so we have to see what it will be doing. Okay? And the Brexit event. Now only 27 countries are party to it. Okay? And this is a very recent event, as all of you know. The Brexit started in 2016 and 2020 was the time when it was finalized. And of course it was a very funny time. I am not sure how many of you remember the things which happened in 2016. So there were a lot of campaign in Britain whether to join the grouping or leave the grouping, whether to stay with the grouping. तो एक ग्रुप क्या कर रहा था, वो कैंपेन कर रहे थे कि यूरोपियन यूनियन में रहना है, दूसरा ग्रुप क्या कर रहा था, छोड़ देना है. एंड फाइनली देयर वाज अ प्लेबिसाइट, वोटिंग हुई कि आप वोट करिए कि ईयू में रहना है कि नहीं, और वोटिंग हो गई, ब्रेक्जिट हो गया. द ब्रेक्जिट वाज एक्सेप्टेड, that the people of Britain voted in favor of Brexit. Next day, all the newspapers of the world, recognized countries, wrote that it was not a very good decision. Matlab, don't know what came to the mind of British people that they voted in favor of such thing, exit. And on that day, what is Brexit? was searched by British people over internet. That term was searched most number of time, and that too in Britain. So the people of this developed country, what they did, वो पहले वोट डाल आए, उनको पता ही नहीं है कि इशू क्या है. जिसने ज्यादा अच्छी कैंपेनिंग की, जो ज्यादा चिल्ला रहा है, जो ज्यादा हल्ला कर रहा है, उसकी बात मान लो, वोट डाल दो. दिस इज हाउ मोस्ट ऑफ अस बिहेव, without even knowing the reason ki why things are being done. Because somebody is creating a propaganda, we tend to believe in it. Okay? So the party which was, the group which was in favor of Brexit were good at selling their agenda. And most of the people, even without trying to know what will happen, they voted. तो हम लोग भी ऐसे ही करते हैं. So in fact, many of the countries, many of the people even wrote, yeah, Yati, we Indians also act in the same way. Not only in elections, in many of the things. In most of the things, we believe in whatever is written in Facebook. Facebook, हमारा news है. In fact, at this point in time, we are so, many a times I get baffled when even newspapers write without verifying, and they then apologize. And very recently, Sasi Tharoor, he tweeted that Lok Sabha Speaker X, she died. So we do not tend to verify. We just do the thing, and then we, when somebody want us to verify, then we see, and we are like, अब तो हो गया, क्या कर सकते हैं. Saksham, these are the regions that were not searched by most of the people who voted. Okay? If you have followed the news at that point in time, it was, in fact, none of the British people were much concerned about this. It was a kind of festivity. People were in groups, they were going to picnic and all was happening. Somebody was giving the speech, people were clapping, and nobody knew what exactly will happen. Even Britain doesn't know today what are the things that they'll be gaining, they'll be losing. So they are extending some of the things. Some of the things they want to take decision after some time, whether they'll do it independently or will stay with Britain, EU. Okay. Yes, Pratyus. Okay, so we'll be talking about this. Not much of all the same conflicting points that we had seen with Britain. So like in 1993, this grouping was formed. So 1994, India signed an agreement of cooperation with this union. Okay, 1994. India signed an agreement of cooperation with EU. So India is engaged with it since its inception. Yeah, Saksham, Northern Ireland is, of course, a cause of concern for Britain. In fact, during that movement, only Scotland also wanted to get some kind of autonomy for Britain. So it was a very critical situation for United Kingdom as a whole at that point in time. Now it's been 5 years almost. So most of the things seems have been settled. And 10 years later, in fact, in 2004, strategic relations were established with an agreement. Now they have signed a roadmap recently. Roadmap 2025 document has been signed for strategic relations. So these are some of the things that are happening. And like with respect to Britain also we were talking. (2007) talks for free trade agreement. 2013 till now, some issues like we had discussed when we were discussing Britain only, because it was Britain only which was focusing on these issues. Rest of the countries were more or less okay with whatever India was talking about, but British were dead against the tariff rates. They had issues of data security status. For Indian IT and market access issues. So most probably things will improve now because Britain has left. And in this month only, it is in the month of May only that talks for FTA got raised again. And it seems that now it can reach a logical agreement. Now Britain is gone, so it will not have much of a say, and India can easily convince some of the friendly nations that we got to sign a free trade agreement as soon as possible so that both the blocs are benefiting. Because of course, as a bloc, EU was India's biggest trading partner, European Union, because it is a group of 27 nations. So these many nations together, of course, gave us more opportunity to engage. And the engagement is of a huge amount, 80 billion. Okay? So the economic aspect is the most important aspect. So we'll start with the economic aspect. So like the talks of FTA has got a fillip. So you need to follow this thing. There will be certainly some agreements in recent times, so follow this. So economic, we have seen free trade agreement is in itself is an important point, but you can note down that as a trading bloc, EU is our largest trading partner. Of course, when we have discussed that France and Britain have invested a lot and they are part of EU. So one of the biggest investors as well. EU is one of the biggest investors in India. And we have failed to sign the free trade agreement, which is called as free trade agreement, which is basically called as BTIA, bilateral trade and investment agreement. So if this term appears, you have to identify that we are talking about, or the question is talking about European Union. The free trade agreement talks between these India and European Union is referred to as this BTIA. And why it is important? Trade in goods and services worth 100 billion euros between India and European Union. So the economic aspect is important. And both of these have agreed to work on circular economy. Okay? I'm pretty sure you might have heard of this word in news somewhere. So these are terms which can directly appear in exam. In prelims, someone can give this term, what it is. They'll give few definitions and you'll be supposed to identify that. Okay. So circular economy concept. So what it says, what is circular economy? Do not confuse it with economic cycle, right? Economic cycle is of demand and supply, but circular economy is utilize a product to its maximum. जैसे हम इंडियन लोग करते हैं, अभी बोतल, पानी की बोतल खरीद के लाए तो पानी पी लेंगे, फिर 1 महीने तक पानी डाल डाल के पिएंगे, फिर बोतल की हालत खराब हो जाएगी तो उसको काट के मिट्टी डाल के तुलसी का पौधा लगा देंगे, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट इट सजेस्ट कि whenever you are buying a product, make sure that you are utilizing it to its full capacity. It shouldn't be like you replace it before it is not fit to use. So utilize a product to its maximum. And then what has to be done? Then extract what can be recycled. Then extract what can be recycled and use this to create the product okay, then again utilize the product to its maximum, and if whatever new thing is added, it is still, it can be used. So this is your circular economy. So both these countries have agreed to follow this approach so that there can be sustainable use of what it can give, circular economy. सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी से क्या फायदा होगा? The benefits. बेनिफिट्स क्या होंगे? लेस कार्बन फुटप्रिंट, ठीक है? कोई भी रिसोर्स, इफ यू वांट टू एक्सट्रैक्ट सम रिसोर्स, you put some labor, you put some energy, and it has repercussions. It will add to some energy consumption, which will lead to maybe increase in the carbon dioxide, okay? Or it will release some heat that can increase the global temperatures. So the direct benefit is, if we are extracting and reutilizing it, less amount of energy will be used. So less carbon footprint, the first effective solution, plus sustainable use of resources. So both these ends can be met. right? So circular economy concept is important. I have explained this thing, but this is at conceptual level. Whenever you are writing the answer, uh, not necessarily you have to explain all the things until and unless you think that it is important. Yeah, Saksham, you can relate to this. And if you'll read some of the speeches of Modi ji, he has extended this concept to even 8 hours. Okay, so you can search it and you can read, and you can use such concepts while writing your answers. So this is important aspect. And the other thing in which both of these are cooperating is a lot is environmental cooperation. Environmental aspect. As it is an economic union, so the biggest concern with any union is what? Economic, right? So economic concern, we are cooperating, but the world is under threat. So one more aspect of cooperation with this union is important, and that is environmental cooperation. So a energy panel was set up in 2005. A energy panel was set up in 2005. ओके तो एनर्जी के बारे में दोनों साइड्स ने किया, एंड they are cooperating in the fields of clean water projects, clean energy projects, they are also supporting India with mobilize your city project of India, here this is basically related to metro rail. Okay, so what here we are having, we are working on methods to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Greenhouse gas emissions while using metro rails. Sorry. Okay. But as you know, the European people, what they want countries like India to take more responsibility, and they will not be transferring technology and money. So, though they talk about global cooperate on global climate change talks, but not much of help. If you can also talk about some technological aspect, like some of the examples like we have seen with France, is space technology, collaborations. If you want to talk, there are a lot many aspects you can talk. ठीक है? Aspects, other aspects. Like space. We have seen France is part of EU, so you can give that example. Okay? You can talk about some other technological collaborations. You can take example of Britain, you can take example of France, you can take any example which is in news. Okay? So you can talk about cultural connect. So of course, diaspora movement is there. We are there to work. So there are a lot many aspects on which you can talk. But whenever you are talking about such aspects, always give contemporary examples. Contemporary examples. You do not need to talk about historical aspect. Always focus on some of the contemporary aspects of this relationship. It will help you more. Like you can also talk about the defense aspect, defense cooperation. Like we were discussing how France is behaving, what is the aspect of Britain, how they are reacting on South China issue, or maybe tourism. Yeah, Yati, tourism, all of that. Tourism you can also include in this thing, economic aspect. Cultural aspect, you can talk about the Bollywood movies, Hollywood movies, how they, both of us want to watch that. Okay, so lot of aspect is there, but whatever aspect is in news, try to incorporate those aspects. Okay, because while writing your answers in 250 words, you have to incorporate only those aspects which are more important. So it is an economic union. So of course you will be giving first priority to economic aspect. Also 28 countries, most of them very, very developed. So their carbon footprint is more. So they have to take responsibility of environmental concerns. So the second thing must be that. And let's say some space program is launched there only, or maybe European Union is coming forward with some space aspect, then talk about the space thing. If there is something related to defense event, then we'll pick this. And if time permits, then we can talk about some of these as well. Okay, so based on the word limit, the time limit, you have to frame your answer whenever you are tackling a relationship with respect to any of the countries, for that matter, in international relations. Okay, so India and EU also we are done. And tomorrow we'll start with some other important countries and we'll try to finish it off as soon as possible. We'll also, maybe if time permits, we'll look at some questions as well, so that you can have brief idea about how to approach some of the contemporary questions, how to include those aspects as well. So for today, I think it is enough. We have covered some important aspects. And if you have any kind of confusion, feel free to ask, so that I can address them. The only thing that you'll require to add to your approach is going through the newspapers, because most of the notes that you have made, the way we have been making, you can exactly replicate those things in your answers with some contemporary statements and examples and introduction and conclusion. But you'll have to do it some smart thing. You'll have to put your brain. Asu, yeah, maybe someday, if time permits, I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. Yeah, Yati, it is great to know that you understood everything and you're following the things that whatever is being taught. And if you do the right things, then definitely you'll make it to the top ranks. Just you have to practice a lot. Revisions, understanding the thing, trying to replicate whatever you know, and things will come to you. You'll start to learn the things. Pratyus, personally, I wouldn't have done that. Okay? We don't need that, but we'll keep looking at those so that we can have some kind of understanding of those matters. Current affairs is the aspect only, right? If you understand the themes, let's say if you understand that now Israel-Palestine are fighting, and suddenly France is giving a statement. Suddenly America is giving a statement, and of course India also has a view. So what you can do? You can create a head where you can, the title can be Stability of South Asia, Stability of Eurasia at large, right? So it can be your heading, and you can write that if Israel and Palestine keep on fighting, then Eurasia will not find the stability. For example, France was concerned and gave this statement. USA was concerned and it opposed this point of view. So of course you have to think a little, and you'll be in a position to incorporate the contemporary things. Only you have to think a little bit of brainstorming, a little bit of thinking over the subject matter, along with whatever you are reading and revising, and it will be easily done. You'll be in a position to do that. Okay, so I hope I have addressed. Suman, yeah, it is altogether different. एक ही चीज में हर कंट्री को इंटरेस्ट नहीं है ना, एक्सपर्टाइज है उनका. So of course they are investing in different fields. Okay, so I think everybody is done with the questions. So revise the things whatever you are reading, and whatever topics we are reading are in news. जब मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि कल ये न्यूज में था, अभी आया था, So it is also your responsibility to go through, make a habit of reading this thing now only, so that you can reconnect the dots. अभी तक जो हुआ है वो मैंने बताया important है, अभी से आप देखते रहेंगे, it will become very very easy for you. Okay, so try to apply some of the things, try to think over the things, and I'm pretty sure that with good amount of efforts, the right direction, you'll make it the very first time you appear for your exam, this time only. Okay, so take good rest, stay healthy and blessed. Thank you.